Welcome to Civic Education. Today we want to look at the constitution making and adoption process. We talked about the parts of the Zambian constitution. We talked about what a constitution is. So we need now to look at the importance of the constitution, types of constitutions. Now we need to look at the process of making the constitution and adopting it finally so that it becomes the law of the land. So this is the process of approving a copy of a draft constitution. So constitutional making and adoption is the process of approving a copy of a draft constitution. If it has not been adopted and signed, it's no law, it's not yet a constitution but a draft constitution. More like you are writing a composition, you have a rough paper, you jot down points, and then finally you have to write the final copy or the final structure of your composition so that it can be marked. So a constitution making and adoption process is the process of approving a copy of a draft constitution. So there are three methods of adopting the constitution. These are: number one, through parliament, okay; number two, constituent assembly, CA; number three, a referendum. Then there is also another thing which you can come up with, which is National Constitutional Conference, NCC. So number one, adopting a constitution through parliament. So the draft constitution is taken to parliament, where members of parliament debate on the draft before adopting it. So for example, Zambia used these 3 times in all the 3 constitutional review commissions. Then we have constituent assembly. This is a board of representatives elected by their respective interest groups to formulate and amend, adopt a constitution of the country. So for example, from the church, a pastor can be a representative from an interest group of believers, Christians or Muslims. Okay, representative drawn from churches, learning institutions, lecturers, principal tutors can be selected to go and sit. They are representing a section of society, students. Trade unions, some leaders of trade unions can be adopted, can be chosen to go, selected to go and represent the interest of workers, because when they are making a constitution, they have to bring out the challenges and views of the public, okay, in line with their sectors. For example, workers, okay, they need protection from harassment, so they can be a cross to protect such kind of individuals who may prone to be vulnerable to public attacks, student bodies and so forth. So this method is more democratic and more favorable to Zambian citizens because it is free from government interference. So the adoption of constitution by CA is more representative than parliament, because parliament you have a handful of 250 people, they start manipulating the constitution, and due to some regulations and rules that are there, the majority wins, maybe coming from the ruling party. They bulldoze their way and they start changing things, putting things that are of their interest, not public interest. So countries such as United States of America, India, Namibia, Uganda, South Africa, Kenya, Ethiopia adopted their constitutions through constituent assembly. So in most cases, experience has shown that countries that adopt a constitution through this means, okay, their constitution tends to stand the test of time, because the politicians, they have no much hand in manipulating the constitution making and adoption. Then referendum. A draft constitution is subjected to the general public to approve it through public vote. If more than half of the vote cast in favor of the amendment, that is 50% plus 1, the constitution would have been adopted, and Republican president who was sent, meaning will sign the draft copy to make it legal, to legitimize it, to make it legal and official. Then we have the National Constitutional Conference, NCC. Sometimes they bring letters. What do the letters CA and NCC stands for? So take note of this abbreviation too. So the choosing of members of assembly of the NCC is similar to that of CA, in that its members are drawn from various interest group party, is a conventional method. The only difference is that final draft constitution of the NCC has to be adopted by Parliament. So it has to be adopted by Parliament. So discuss the characteristics of a good constitution. A good constitution has the following characteristics. Clear, meaning language used must not be too difficult for ordinary citizen to understand. Someone with basic knowledge, grade 9, 10, 11 and 12 should be able to get the meaning. Be neither too rigid to prevent change nor flexible to encourage tampering with the basic principles. So it shouldn't be too flexible because it can change over time, but it shouldn't be too rigid to prevent, too flexible to be tempered by those in power or politicians, and too flexible, too rigid not to anticipate any changes that may occur, like evolvement of technology. It has brought a lot of things. People are insulting on social media and so forth. So a constitution which is rigid will not take care of such new threats. Then be stable and stand the test of time. This, they like this. What does it mean? Must last for a long period of time. The other term is durable. Should be durable. Protect and respond to social, economic and political needs of citizens. Cater for the interest of various groups in society, like the disabled and so forth, the orphans and the like. Protect the rights of citizens, right to freedom of association, freedom of speech, assembly, life, education, water, access to water, safe drinking water, and so forth. So explain why a constitution is important to a nation. Number one, protects and promotes the rule of law. This, they like asking this question. Two, sets out composition of functions of wings of government, as we saw in the parts of the constitution. Safeguard the fundamental rights of freedom of citizens. It is owned and guarded by citizens. Ensure democratic governance. Give equal opportunities for individual development. So to ensure democratic governance, if there is no constitution, there will be dictatorship. People who wield too much power. Give equal opportunities for individual development. You should have opportunities, okay, to go to school, to pursue whatever you want, and so forth. Safeguard the fundamental freedom of rights. Should protect the right to life. No one should kill. So that's why when someone kills the other person has to be tried in the courts of law. If found guilty, sentenced to a prison sentence. It should be owned and guarded by citizens, meaning that you should be able to check, are these leaders that we have following the constitution? If they are not, you have a right to challenge them through the various means, like going to the constitutional court or asking for a tribunal to be set, so that those culprits who are breaking the constitution, abrogating the constitution, can be punished, can be dealt with, because it's only supreme law of the land to which we are all subordinate. We have to obey. Okay, doesn't matter which position you hold, president or whatever, and so forth. So that is what it is. So we are done with the constitution. We will begin governance system in Zambia. So before that, we have to go through past papers. I show you how questions come and how to answer and so forth. So please make sure that you study. Thank you so much for your attention.